At the time of me filming this video, Ashneer Grover has just stepped down from his role as a chairman of the board and as the managing director of BharatPe. But how did this happen? Well, let's take a look at his journey with BharatPe from its beginning until its end to try to better understand how he actually got to this point. Coming up right after this. For many people, there's a very close mental association between BharatPe and Ashneer Grover. It's kind of like how people think of Tesla when they think of Elon Musk. But just like Elon Musk and Tesla, Ashneer Grover didn't actually start BharatPe. The idea wasn't his. So BharatPe was founded by Bhavikkumar Koladiya and Shashvat Nakhrani in March of 2018. And back then, Ashneer was still working for PC Jewelers, getting their new gold loan business up and running. It was only in July of 2018 when Bhavik reached out to Ashneer for angel investment that Ashneer became BharatPe's third co-founder. See, Bhavik and Shashvat come from small towns and didn't have a lot of connections in the industry that they were trying to disrupt. And they also needed help raising funds. And so Ashneer agreed to leverage his personal network for BharatPe's benefit. He went to IIT Delhi, IIM Ahmedabad, he worked at Kotak Mahindra Bank and American Express, and he had startup experience too. He had been the CFO of one of the most successful grocery delivery startups in India, Grofers, now called Blinkit. And he had even helped them to raise $170 million. He knew people in the startup world, the VC ecosystem, and in the banking industry. In other words, he was the perfect fit. As promised, in October of 2018, Ashneer helped BharatPe raise $2 million, half of which came from B Next, and the rest from Sequoia Capital and a handful of angel investors. But this is the part of the story where things start to get a little bit interesting, because Bhavikkumar Koladiya decided to transfer all of his shares to Ashneer, and Shashvat Nakhrani and Shashvat's father, and a couple of angel investors. But why? Well, back in October of 2013, Bhavikkumar was incarcerated in the United States on charges of mail fraud. According to information presented in court, he'd stolen people's identities to open credit card accounts at US Bank, Chase Bank, Discover, and more. And then he quickly used these cards to buy things like, for example, diamonds. Now, fast forwarding to 2018, we're not really sure if Ashneer knew about Bhavikkumar's shady past, or whether Bhavikkumar told him that this is why he didn't want his shares to be under his own name once big investors started showing up to the party, but Bhavikkumar is still actually at BharatPe. He's head of the company's tech team. And he has Ashneer to thank for that. Without Ashneer's connections and reputation, BharatPe may never have gotten off the ground. So within 3 years of Ashneer joining the company, they had become a unicorn. They were making a name for themselves. As of the financial year of 2021, BharatPe's revenue had reached 700 crore rupees, and their QR code-based UPI solution continues to enable merchants to accept digital payments from platforms like Paytm, PhonePe, and GPay without having to pay any commission. And everybody was pretty happy with this widespread adoption, and the startup's valuation, and the growth trajectory that it was on. The company's investors, Ashneer Grover, and their customers. But all of that would change on the 5th of January of 2022. An audio recording of a phone call was leaked, and in this clip, someone was heard berating and threatening to kill an employee of Kotak Mahindra Bank.
Are you drunk, sir?
Are you dumb?
Are you drunk, sir?
Are you dumb?
No, I am not dumb, but please, sir, mind your language. And I had a very beautiful relationship with you. I had a very beautiful relationship with you, sir.
This male voice also hands the phone over to a female voice who talks with the Kotak employee as well.
Toilet, please. Yeah, hi, ma'am.
Why are you lost? Why are you talking like that?
Ma'am, I am not talking, but ma'am, Subha, I was.
आप लोगों के पास नहीं विष्णु आप लोगों ने झूठ बोला है अगर आप लोगों के पास एलोकेशन नहीं थी तो हमको कमिट क्यों किया
Ma'am, there, ma'am.
उसने जस्ट अभी हमें बताया है कि अश्मीर didn't get to allocation और उससे पहले आप लोगों ने ये स्टोरी की कि कोटक has pulled out from the IPO financing of Nykaa.
Ma'am, I have no idea.
The reason? Not being able to get allotment in Nykaa's IPO. According to the leaker, this person was Ashneer Grover and his wife, Madhuri Jane Grover. Ashneer, of course, quickly tweeted that the clip was fake, but later on he deleted this tweet, and the leaked audio clip was also removed soon after. Now, everybody probably would have just forgotten about this whole thing and moved on with their lives after deciding that it was in fact possible that the audio clip was fake, but then it was revealed that Ashneer and Madhuri had actually filed a legal notice against Kotak Mahindra Bank for this very same issue, not getting allotment in Nykaa's IPO. Things escalated to the point where Kotak initiated legal action against Ashneer and Madhuri over the leaked audio clip. And while it's still not clear if that audio clip did in fact feature the voices of Ashneer and Madhuri, many are convinced that it was them. Now, to explain why they sent a legal notice to Kotak in the first place, we need to understand IPO financing. So HNIs, high net individuals, can apply for this type of financing before an IPO. The bank gives them a loan, they invest the money from this loan into the IPO, and they use some of the returns from the IPO to pay back the bank later on. However, in this case, the IPO financing didn't come through in time, and Ashneer and Madhuri weren't able to participate in Nykaa's hugely successful IPO. And this wasn't a small amount of money that they were looking to invest either. They had applied for IPO financing worth 500 crore rupees and missed out big time on this opportunity to grow their wealth. And so that's why they filed a legal notice against Kotak Mahindra Bank. Now, this is obviously a very messy issue, but I still think that it would have flown under the radar of most people if Ashneer Grover hadn't been a judge on Shark Tank India. He was in the public eye now at precisely the wrong moment. It was the perfect storm. And his rude and abrasive behavior while talking to entrepreneurs on the show didn't sit well with many of Shark Tank India's audience members. People thought that if someone could be this rude to a budding entrepreneur, someone with a dream and the courage to get in front of the camera and share their idea with millions of people, then maybe that leaked call recording was real. People thought that maybe that was the voice of Ashneer Grover. And then the Sequoia Capital incident surfaced. I mentioned earlier that Sequoia had participated in BharatPe's seed round, and they still believed in the startup when it came time for them to raise their Series A. So they invested in it. But when it came time for BharatPe's Series B, the money didn't come through in time. Sequoia Capital was late in holding up their end of the deal, and Ashneer allegedly was pretty upset about this, using strong language to express his dissatisfaction towards MD Harshjit Sethi. And because of this clash, Sequoia ended up choosing not to invest in BharatPe's Series C round in 2020. So at this point, there was a picture that was beginning to form, and it wasn't a pretty one. People started to think of Ashneer as a millionaire bully with a foul mouth and a short temper. And this reputation was infectious. BharatPe's reputation as a company was being affected now. And so in an effort to distance themselves, they asked Ashneer to go on a voluntary leave of absence until the end of March. Now, was this leave of absence really voluntary? Well, Ashneer claims that it wasn't. He said that he was manipulated into going on leave by BharatPe's CEO, Samir Suhail. And just 1 week after he stopped coming into work, Madhuri, who was the head of controls at BharatPe according to her LinkedIn, was also sent on voluntary leave. So the Grovers were now officially out of the house. Now was the time for BharatPe to act. The startup's board announced an independent audit to look into their internal systems and processes. Now, this move can be interpreted in a couple of different ways. Perhaps BharatPe had reason to believe that Ashneer had been acting in bad faith somehow even before all of this controversy. Or perhaps they didn't, and they were just conducting a fishing expedition looking for an excuse to fire Ashneer. Or perhaps this was an optics thing. Maybe they announced this audit so publicly to simply add to the growing body of negative press directed towards Ashneer. Irrespective of the intent though, Ashneer quickly hired himself a team of lawyers to protect his interests and his shareholding at BharatPe. Now, in response to this, BharatPe's board hired PwC to conduct the independent audit. And PwC is one of the big four accounting firms, and according to BharatPe's Articles of Association, which is a legal document that outlines the company's rules and regulations, a founding member of the company can be removed and their equity can be bought back by the company at fair market value if one of the big fours can show any kind of gross negligence or willful misconduct involving that founding member. So now BharatPe's intentions were clear. They were looking for any kind of financial fraud or misconduct that might have happened while Ashneer was heading BharatPe. Now, meanwhile, outside of BharatPe, Ashneer was actively speaking out against the company's board. He wanted CEO Samir Suhail to be removed from the board, and he's actually the one who hired Samir in the first place. He also wanted 4,000 crore rupees for his 9.5% stake in the company, which is double the last official valuation, and he also appealed to the SIAC, that's the Singapore International Arbitration Center, saying that BharatPe's investigation didn't give him any chance to present his side of the story, and was aimed at tarnishing his reputation and removing him as a shareholder. But this appeal to the SIAC was quashed, despite the fact that Ashneer has repeatedly and categorically denied any financial wrongdoing. On the 23rd of February of 2022, Madhuri Jane Grover was fired on allegations of financial fraud and misappropriation of funds at BharatPe. According to media reports, she had used company funds to finance her holiday travels worth about 1 crore rupees, and had also bought expensive electronic and beauty care products too. And then there's the financial fraud. So many companies recruit employees through recruitment consultants or vendors, and these vendors are paid recruitment fees. And BharatPe did the same thing here. Most of their new hires were through an external third-party recruitment service. Now, being head of controls, Madhuri usually handled the invoices for these transactions and would forward them to BharatPe's accounts department to get them cleared. And according to various media reports, there were a lot of discrepancies between the vendors and these invoices. It's possible that some of these invoices were fake, that the vendors didn't exist. These vendors didn't have a website, they all had the same physical addresses, email addresses, and bank branches, and interestingly, they all had a Bunny Butt connection too. So it's being alleged now, and media reports are backing this up, that these mysterious vendors were actually Shwetank Jain, Madhuri Jain's brother. Now, at this point, it's too early to say anything conclusively, we just don't really know what happened here, but the company apparently saw a loss of 10.97 crore rupees because of these fake invoices. A week after this came to light, on the 1st of March of 2022, Ashneer Grover stepped down from BharatPe in a scathing resignation letter directed towards the company's board of directors and investors. And we'll include a link to that letter in the description down below in case you guys are interested, but it's still unclear how this whole story is gonna end. What will PwC find, if anything? Will Ashneer be forced to sell his stake in BharatPe, and if so, for how much? Is Ashneer Grover innocent of financial fraud, or were he and Madhuri Jain in it together, siphoning money out of their startup? Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see. The public is torn right now. Some people are making him out to be a folk hero, someone who speaks his mind and isn't afraid of what other people think of him, and other people are convinced that he's the villain. I'll leave you guys with this closing line from his resignation letter. I have founded and built BharatPe into what it is today, and this identity none of you can take away from me.